Go, Tom.
A reminder, I am a therapist. I am not a Buddhist, okay? I'm going to be talking about the Eightfold Path again, and I'm not going to say I'm going to do it perfect like a Buddhist expert. That's not my intention. As a therapist, I've noticed great value in seeing and looking at all the world's wonderful philosophies and religions and noticing the unity in them, but also seeing the therapeutic value. There's very few things that I've experienced that has greater therapeutic value than the Noble Eightfold Path. So I might not say it perfectly well, but I want you to know, I want you to learn about it so you can look into it more if you want, just like we do with other religions. Go deeper if you want, but notice how effective it is on the therapeutic level, okay? So the reason I say that is because I'm taking what my understanding of this is and personalizing it, which is quite a Buddha thing to do anyways. You know, we all have our own paths, says the Buddha. And I have a couple opinions on this that are unique to me. And it might not work for you, and it might not be the way the Buddhist masters teach it. Well, whatever, it works for me, and I'm going to keep doing it. And that's heavy emphasis on something we're going to be talking about today called right livelihood, okay? It's important because this is one place where I sort of vary off script a little bit, although it might be in alignment with plenty of other Buddhists, but it's an important thing for me to emphasize as we get into it. So I'm going to do a quick review of the first four. Remember, there's 8. This is the first 4 steps. We're going to do it pretty quickly. I changed the drawing from last one. Instead of the spirit or the mind or the consciousness or whatever clinging to a physical, and that's attachment, this drawing is releasing, okay? And that if there's anything that Buddhism is ultimately about in one word, detachment, it's learning how to let go. It's learning how to release. And it's ultimately learning how to release the mindset, okay? Your perception of the world, release from your opinions and all our various addictions and cravings and all of that. And so in one concept, right view is letting go, okay? There's a lot more to it, but that's a quick way to think of it. Right intention. Once you learn how to let go, the beauty of that is what John says in Scripture, I must decrease so he may increase. He's referring to the Christ in Jesus has to increase in us. When we decrease by learning how to let go, our ego decreases because the ego wants to hold on to things. My way's right, your way's wrong. Do it my way. Once that's diminished and we move towards greater truth, Spirit shows up for us. Okay? It's the default. It's an awakening. It's to realize that all of us are already there. Our spiritual beings are already here. We just have the illusion and ignorance on top of us in the form of the ego. Once the Spirit shows up, I drew the same soul or mindset filled with this energy. We call it the Spirit or the Tao or Zen or whatever. But it's a certain kind of energy that shows up inside of a person. It's part of the awakening process. Well, right intention is helping other people experience that. That's it. There's a million ways to do that. Practically infinite. But the intention must be to help other people understand their suffering comes from incorrect view or wrong view. And fixing the physical world ain't going to correct things either. There's plenty of very, very wealthy, healthy people, physically speaking, that are still miserable. Okay? That's because our suffering comes from wrong view. The idea that things need to go this way and our attempts to control. Right view is the releasing. So right intention is helping people experience that. And in many ways, it's a vibration. It's not much that you have to do other than actually have that intention to truly care about others, whether they're your friends or your foes. That's right intention. And right speech, this says that's your mouth, okay? Your heart is your mouth. That does the speaking. Right speech isn't using physical words, although it can be. And if your physical speech is backed with right view and right intention, then good, we're on point. But right speech is ultimately the word that's coming out of your heart. It's an energy, it's a frequency, it's a vibration, okay? And if you're backed by right view and right intention, what are you going to be doing? You're going to be vibing all the time with people. And it's effective. It works with dogs, okay? It works with plants. It works for human beings, whether they're friend or foe. And that's right speech. And if you pull those 3 things together, you put it into right action. This is the karma phase, because if you're doing right view and right intention and right speech, right action is going to follow suit. It's going to be the right thing to do, because you're going to be carrying good energy wherever you go. We're all on the same team. We're a unified group of human beings that are actually working on the same goals together. That's right action. That can be done many, many, many different ways. Okay? But when we often, what we mess up is when we think we're behaving or acting in a certain kind of way that's relativistic. It's relative to our culture or our religion and our prophet or our politics or whatever. Now we're doing actions that aren't backed by right view and right intention. You truly want to love another as oneself. Remember, we did that in right view. That part of the idea of understanding right view, says Thich Nhat Hanh, is you have to understand the other person is you. They're not you, but they are you. Chinese philosophy, Esho Funi, two but not two. We're different, but we're the same. That's part of right view. Part of right view is also loving your enemy. And then with right intention, you want to spread the same sort of the effort that you put into cultivating your spirit, you want to spread that to others. And there's no discrimination there. So much of these, the rights here is about non-discrimination. And it's open-mindedness and loving all, okay? With no exception. You don't get to pick and choose who you love. If you put all that together and you fold it into right action, now we got it. And whatever you're doing, the behaviors won't matter. It surely won't be hurting people, okay? Because you got right intention at your back. Now, that brings me to right livelihood. Just notice it's important to emphasize in right action. We talked about precepts last time, okay? And precepts, the definition of a precept, general rule that's intended to regulate behavior or thought, okay? Buddhists have 5 precepts. Some of them include don't kill, don't steal, don't commit sexual immorality, those types of things, okay? There are also 10 commandments from the Bible. The 10 commandments that Jesus himself overthrew in one fell swoop by saying, love your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love another as oneself. That, he said, is the most important commandment. Well, Buddha also said, well, there's rules, general precepts, but there are no commandments. And I'm about to illustrate exactly why you cannot have commandments, not behavioral ones. Because as we move into right livelihood, there could be tons of argument here. And I could see why people would quit the Eightfold Path because of this phase right here. But I'm going to say, all right, we have to understand the intention behind this and what right livelihood really means, okay? And so one thing that I like to say is I think the Eightfold Path is so good, it could be the Sevenfold Path. You could merge these two things pretty simply, right action and right livelihood. And in Buddha's day, it was different than in our day. The way people made their livelihood back then is quite different than the way we do it today. So many different types of jobs and a wide variety of things that humans can do. Buddha couldn't have possibly envisioned things like cars and airplanes and folding that into the idea of do no harm. And part of right livelihood is this: live your life in accordance with the first 4 steps. Choose a career that is backed by these first 4 steps. And that includes do no harm, right? And to love another as oneself. But we have to be mindful of, okay, what does that mean? And who's going to make the decision on what the harm is, okay? Because some of the precepts in right livelihood is to have no slaves, no human trafficking. Okay, I think we can agree to that. Don't work in a weapons industry, because, that could harm people. Don't eat meat or don't work at a place that serves meat, because, harms animals. No liquor, so don't work at a bar, right? And you can't be a waitress at a bar either, because, liquor. No poisons. Oh, what could that possibly mean? Is he talking about insecticide? All right, so those are pretty strict rules, and I'm teasing when I say that's quite Christian sounding sometimes when the radical Christians are behaviorally focused too much, and they're not paying attention to the teachings, like when Jesus says, Matthew 23:23, you're focused on tithing dill and mint and cumin when you should be focused on the weightier matters of the law, faith, justice, and mercy. Jesus makes it very clear that playing the physical rules isn't the point. He even says you can do those things, do those physical rules. You can do the 10 commandments. It's a good idea to not kill. But are you always going to be able to, can you guarantee that you're never going to kill? In Buddhism, they talk about not killing any sentient being. Don't kill ants, don't kill bugs, don't kill spiders, and don't eat meat, right? But can you pull that off all the time? So now here's where I'll give you some examples. And why, when Jesus says, you should focus on the weightier matters of the law, faith, justice, and mercy. It's the same thing as what the Buddha is talking about. What does that mean? They're precepts, they're not commandments, okay? You should intend to do no harm. And you should live your life and pick an occupation in which you live in a way that honors all of this. How could you possibly go about your life and never kill anything, including bugs? And can you drive a car and not run into a fly? Should you just never drive? There's a wonderful place that I heard about down in Brazil. There's a monastery in which on your way to the monastery, there's apparently a giant ant colony, and there's a sign, watch out for ants, pointing down. And sure enough, there's tons of ants walking back and forth. And they mindfully have a sign to get people to pay attention to the fact that you might step on ants. Who wants to do that? And if you're not supposed to kill things and you just stepped on an ant, then now all of a sudden you're out of the Eightfold Path, right? Well, what was your intention? I want to cause some pain here with these ants, right? Or when you're driving a car, gee, I hope I smash into a bunch of flying insects. That's not your intention. It's the same thing throughout all of this. The Buddha himself said that when it comes to things like military and police, or at least the Buddhist tradition, those things you can do. Military and police. Don't military kill things? Can't police shoot things, right? Now, why is that? It's the intention behind it. And as a precept, it's a good idea if you're practicing the Eightfold Path to perhaps try to work in an industry that doesn't do these things. But is it a requirement? No. Can you be in these industries? Probably not the slave thing, obviously, human trafficking. But can you be in an industry like military?